What's happening, all you minties? This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, and join me today for an advanced look at these collected editions coming out this week from Marvel Comics. Let's get started. Before getting started, I want to give a huge thank you to David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these trades. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on June 28th. Or 29th, depending on where you get your books. So we have an Epic collection. We have 2 Saga collections. That's the term they're using for these big, thicker books that aren't exactly complete collections nor Epic collections. And then 1 Ms. Marvel trade paperback. So there's going to be some spoilers when I get to Thor and the Valkyrie book, just to kind of give you a heads up. And I do want to show off the artwork, so maybe put me on mute or maybe skip around in case you don't want to know anything about these particular stories. Alright, so let's get started with Ms. Marvel. So here is Ms. Marvel, Beyond the Limit. This is the series that follows up the Magnificent Ms. Marvel series by Saladin Ahmed. So I think this is just a mini-series, but it does set up events for other things to happen. Love that cover, by the way. And this is written by Samira Ahmed, and it's all drawn by Andres Genolet, and the color is Triona Farrell. So it all kicks off with Kamala visiting her cousin in Chicago, and when she's visiting her cousin, I love the fact that they take... That's one of my favorite things about Marvel Comics, is that, you know, it's the world outside your window. That's the way it's always been sold. These heroes really exist in our world. There is no Metropolis, there's no Gotham City or Star City or things like that. It's just Chicago, New York, New Jersey, wherever it is. I thought that was cool, and so she's visiting the Bean. So if you live there or you've been there, you could be like, oh my gosh, I've been there. When I was a kid, I loved doing that. Maybe a little bit now. Alright, but let's move on to the main part of the story. And it all takes place at her cousin's place of work, Chicago University, where there's something that's inside of this vault, and this mysterious person wearing a trench coat is trying to get it. This cosmic cube thing, if you will. Well, this, as soon as she touches it, reveals that there are a multiverse of different Kamalas out there, different Ms. Marvels. And she kind of takes that with her. The mysterious trench coat person disappears, and she goes back home. I thought that was interesting, though, that she leaves her cousin passed out, as long as she's okay, but catches a flight to go back home. Now, this is when things start getting a little weird, because her life becomes like a Bollywood movie. She even calls it that herself. Everybody cuts into singing and dancing for absolutely no reason. At first, we think, okay, it's the God of Mischief, it's Loki, but no, there's something else going on. Now, during this time, she's also losing her powers. They're on the fritz, if you will. She can't control them. And there's this other person that is dressed like her. So she's training her to take her place as Ms. Marvel. There's a lot of plot twists and turns here. And to me, it felt like I thought I knew where it was going, and a little bit, but there were a couple of turns in here that I thought, okay, I didn't see that coming. So that's practically what this is. So she gets the help of her friends, whether they were champions or Avengers at one time, and tries to see if she can teach this doppelganger how to be the proper Ms. Marvel that can use her powers. There is a pretty dark story as to that doppelganger's origin, but let's look in the back here for some extras. So we have some variant covers back here. And like I said, even though I think this is a mini-series, it does leave it open for more stories to happen. I can't believe we don't have a Ms. Marvel ongoing series. We had it for so long with G. Willow Wilson and then Saladin Ahmed. So, I don't know. With the new show, and maybe we'll get another one. So this book has 120 pages, and it retails for $15.99. Now, this is one of those books that I am going to be talking about spoilers on. So, not a lot, but kind of give you an idea of what the story is without going into why it's happening or how Gorr gets defeated or anything like that. But I feel like the story has been around for over 10 years now, that it's okay to talk about with giving you all a little heads up. But I do respect the people that are like, no, I don't want to know anything about it. Well, skip to the next book, timestamps in the description of the video. But here is the Saga of Gorr, the God Butcher. This has been released, of course, in trade paperback format, oversized hardcover format, standard size hardcover format, and the most recent, now out of print, Jason Aaron Thor Omnibus Volume 1. So this is just collecting the 11 issues of that series, the first 11 issues of Thor, God of Thunder. And introduces us to Gorr, the God Butcher. So this is all written by Jason Aaron, Azad Ribic doing all the artwork with the exception of Butch Guice doing issue number 6. And issue number 6 is important if you were following the Venom series by Donny Cates. So, Azad Ribic, oh my gosh, with this heavy metal art style, I love it. So, it's so interesting to see this type of story. And, you know, I've seen some writers come close to doing something similar, but this one was pretty unique in a way. So, it starts off in the past. You have past Thor dealing with some gods that are dying and he doesn't know why. You have present Thor following this trail of blood of all these dead gods. And then you have future Thor. And future Thor is this old guy just sitting on a throne and Gorr's forces are about to attack him. And that is basically the story of Gorr the God Butcher taking place in 3 different time zones. I don't want to say if there's going to be time travel or anything here, but just know that it takes 3 different times to kind of wrap up this story. And still leave it open for some other things. So yes, it's really unique in the way that we see Thor read about his past, read about his present, where we are today, and read about his future, where he's going to be. And honestly, how things kind of led to that future, why he's alone, and he's there with his granddaughters. So here's Gorr, and you may have seen him in the trailer. This is going to be the villain, or I assume it's going to be the villain in the new Love and Thunder. By the way, we'll be doing a review of that next Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But yes, this is the big fight with that particular character. He's a character that just goes around killing gods. So it's a very menacing type of character. We've seen gods die in comics before, but the way he does it is pretty brutal. And of course, he has his own origin story why he does it. I've always loved this page. I kind of hope that they use this particular panel in the movie. It's just so creepy the way he's sitting there. And I know that people are like, oh, Christian Bale doesn't look anything like him with the makeup. He looks ridiculous. He looks like Voldemort. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. Maybe they'll use some CG for the tentacles on his head. I always thought he had a really unique look to him. But he can, morph his body around, so I don't see why they wouldn't do that. But anyway, this is what the kick-ass artwork looks like. This is the Butch Guice, who's a legend in comics, telling a little bit about his background, but more importantly, it introduces us to the concept of a King in Black, if you will, which of course carries over into the Venom series by Donny Cates. And Null is sort of introduced in that particular issue. And that particular story is kind of stuck in the middle. So it's like his origin story, Gorr's origin story. And here's some more artwork from the back of the book. 3 different times and find out for yourself if there's going to be time travel, how they end up defeating Gorr, and what it all means and where it can all lead. Because this actually sets up the events of what happens next. Now, let's look in the back here for extras. All the way in the back are your extras. So you have the combined covers there of 1 and 2 by Azad Ribic, Joe Quesada, variant covers. The book has 272 pages, retails for $29.99. And if you're asking me or yourself, why did they publish this if it's already in trade paperback and complete collections, I think this is just a more accessible way to get, your friends to read Thor, especially if they had just watched the Love and Thunder movie. Maybe it's a way that if they're interested in Gorr, you can be like, hey, you want to see what that's based on? I got you. And it's probably why most publishers do the same thing whenever movie properties or TV properties come out. So it's not just omnis, because they realize that not everybody gets omnibus editions. Here's some original artwork. Pencils by Azad Ribic. That's the Butch Guy stuff right there. And let's keep going. Alright, it's spine watching time, baby. This is the part where I remind everybody to smash that like button and subscribe and ring that bell for notifications. And pause, so you can take a closer look at the spines of the books coming out this week. This is the other book I'm going to be talking about, some spoilers, and, well, when you have a title like that, Jane Foster, The Saga of Valkyrie, it's very little I can do not spoiling that. So, if you don't want to know how or what, if, when, all that, put me on mute. Just look at the pretty pictures. But I'm going to talk a little bit about how it happens. Alright, so Jane Foster, the Saga of Valkyrie. This is a funny story because this is one that was in the catalog. Sometimes books get into the catalog and they're not complete. They're missing content, they're missing covers. Sometimes the wrong content is in there. Sometimes they're the wrong type of book. And when this snuck into the catalog, it snuck in as an oversized hardcover. And people were excited. They were messaging me. And I honestly replied back with, I haven't heard about it. And I always say this on my channel, whether it's DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, Image, it doesn't matter. Just because it's in the catalog does not mean it's not going to go away soon. Or it could be canceled or rebranded. The safest bet is always the solicitations. So it's always important to keep an eye out on those. Those solidify that these books are coming out in the format that they say they're going to come out in. So here we have, yes, Jane Foster, Valkyrie. But it starts off with her adventures as Jane Foster Thor. So Jane Foster is dying of cancer, and every time she wields the hammer and becomes Thor during the Mighty Thor era, her cancer just advances. So, if you've not read it, it's a beautiful story, and you should just not watch this. Go and read this particular stuff. Now, this is not collected in Omnibus Volume 1. This will be part of Part 2 whenever that comes out, Volume 2, because this is her last part as Thor, or the Mighty Thor. So here's a little cameo by the writer Jason Aaron, the artist Russell Dodderman, and then Matthew Wilson, the colorist. Love when they do that stuff and sneak themselves in there. So yes, during this time, what's collected in here, Jane Foster is still dying of cancer and playing the role of Thor, knowing that it's killing her. Odin's son comes in. He's no longer Thor during this time, and he begs her not to wield a hammer again. But she's a hero. And this is where we learn a little bit about Mjolnir and why Mjolnir is a hammer for Thor and can be really anything. So this collects Thor, or rather Mighty Thor 702 to 706, the Valkyrie Jane Foster issues 1 through 10, and then material from Mighty Thor at the Gates of Valhalla number 1, and War of the Realms Omega number 1. So let's get to there. So if you've not read this, I'm not going to show you the ending. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it should have ended a different way, but if you're going to continue the character of Jane Foster, then this is the best way to end it. Oh, look at just this gorgeous artwork. I can't wait for you all that are waiting for this in oversized format to get that Volume 2 whenever it comes out. So let's get to, yes. So this is the Gates of Valhalla, where we see future Thor's granddaughters, and they're hanging out with Jane Foster, talking about her important role. But the most important thing that happens is here in material from the War of the Realms Omega. I think this is drawn by Jen Bartel, if I'm not mistaken. This is where Jane Foster is sitting there. Now, this is where I'm talking about a little bit of spoilers in War of the Realms with the Valkyries' bodies. All the Valkyries, Broomhild, all the Valkyries died during War of the Realms. So she's sitting there at her morgue, just looking at the dead bodies. This is a human morgue, right? It's a hospital. And this is Lisa, her friend that knew about her time as Thor. And then Odin's son walks in, and he's worried about his friends. Because you see, if there is no Valkyries, then there is no afterlife. There's no Valhalla for all of the Asgardians. So this is really cool. Remember when I said Mjolnir is different? It just chooses the shape of a hammer for Thor, for Odin's son. But for Jane, it becomes a bracelet. And if you see it right there, this is where Brunhild asks her, hey, if you want to take on the task of all the Valkyries, then we give you the power of the Valkyrie. And of course, Jane Foster, being the hero and the person that she is, chooses. So she becomes Valkyrie. And that's how that pretty much happens. It's all in the aftermath of War of the Realms, and then she gets her own ongoing series. And this is written by Al Ewing and Jason Aaron for the most part. Torunn Grönberg, I believe is how you say her name. She doesn't join until the last 2 issues. Now, there were other miniseries. I want to say there was a King in Black miniseries that took place after that. So that's not collected in here. So even if you're a completist and you want all of Jane Foster Valkyrie, it's not in there. And in a way, I kind of don't want it to end because I really enjoy these stories. Here she is fighting Bullseye, and Bullseye had to take on her and Heimdall. So now her job is to take fallen warriors to the afterlife, to Valhalla. So it's a pretty cool story because she also gets to see the rest of the Valkyries. She gets to see, this is, oh my gosh, what's his name? Horsey, I think. This is her flying steed that can talk. She gets to fight the Grim Reaper when Mephisto's kind of manipulating him. This is during Mephisto's time here on Earth when he was trapped by Doctor Strange and Johnny Blaze was in hell as the ruler of hell. And speaking of Doctor Strange, there's a team up here with Doctor Strange and a couple of other characters I haven't seen in a long time, and I'll give you one of them, the Cardiac. Oh, and it's important to note that she is a doctor at first, but then because she keeps missing work because she becomes a superhero again, they demote her to a morgue assistant. That was pretty funny. But then again, how are you going to keep explaining why you're late or why you can't come in? And sadly, the series was canceled with issue number 10. I believe Mahmoud Asrar did all the covers for the ongoing series, but Cafu does the internal artwork with the exception of 2 issues. And Cafu's the artist that's drawing the Iron Man series right now by Cantwell. If you're not reading that, you definitely should be. This was a great series. I don't know if a lot of people missed out on it. I don't think the people that were reading Thor went out seeking this series. I thought it was great. I really enjoy the character of Jane. And even though I wanted a different ending, an ending, to show her true heroics, I think they did the best they could with a character that they weren't going to kill off, so they made her another hero. So I thought that was cool. And towards the end, you get the feeling that she's going to be searching for the Valkyries. Somehow she's going to be restoring them, but that's another story. Let's get to the variants. So here we have the variant covers all the way in the back. That's a badass one. I love that variant. I actually have that one signed by Jason Aaron, Art Germ, and Russell Dodderman. I don't have single issues that much, but I still, I don't know. When I go to shows, I get tempted. And for those people wondering, where is my Heroes Con video? That will be coming out this week. Just got to put it together. Sound was giving me some issues, so I got to make sure that I can fix that first. So all these in the back are just variant covers from either Valkyrie or the Thor run. And then the different weapons that she uses. Jane Foster refused to die, and I've been thinking about death. These are great intros to the book. I think they were in the back of the trade paperback, the first one. But this one retails for $39.99, and it has 376 pages. Last, but certainly not least, Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. This is part of their Legends brand, Volume 2. Now, this is Legends because it's the Dark Horse era. And right here, this is interesting. These stories take place 4 to 5 millennia before Episode 1. What the hell? Oh, man. I know that when I did a review of Knights of the Old Republic, the Old Republic Omnibus, I was like, this is some of the best stories I've read in Star Wars. I love these because you're no longer connected to the Skywalker saga, right? Like, I thought this was awesome. And then people were in the comments were like, dude, you gotta read Tales of the Jedi. And I had read the volume 1 of this, and, I thought it was really good, but I think this was just superior to that. Most of this written by Kevin J. Anderson, Tom Veidt doing the last 2 stories in here. And let's actually look at this. So this introduces you to the time of the Jedi and the Sith during this time. So this collects the Tales of the Jedi, the Golden Age of Sith. It's issue 0 through 5, so kicking it off with this issue right here, Conquest and Unification. And this is where they give you, like, the credits. So writers Kevin J. Anderson, the pencilers Chris Gossett, inkers, colorists, letterers, and even the cover artists. I love that they do that, and they leave you the actual pages. This introduces you to the characters that will play a huge part in the 2 miniseries here, and that is Jory Daragon and Gab Daragon, her brother. And, this also collects Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, Fall of the Sith Empire, issues 1 through 5, Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, 1 through 5. Those are just mini-stories featuring different characters. Tales of the Jedi, The Freedom Nod Uprising, 1 through 2. Now, these were written in the late 90s But one thing that stood out to me immediately is the artwork. It was very similar to something in the 80s. It's very European style. I love this. It reminded me of Dark Empire in a way. And this actually, one of the stories back here does have ties to Dark Empire. So, in this particular era, we have what is known as the Great Hyperspace War. So you have the Republic and you have the Empire, of course you do. And these two siblings, Jory and Gav, they lose their parents in the first issue. And both of them are separated. Gav ends up with the Empire, and then Jory ends up as a prisoner of the Republic. And there are Jedi here, but it's a different form of Jedi. Like, especially the way that the lightsabers work. They're like battery operated. The machine. There are even Hutts in here, by the way. I don't know that's on him, but one of the main characters is a Hutt. But the spaceships are just ancient, like the way they look. Don't look for like Star Destroyers or Death Stars or anything like that, or X-Wings. It's really cool the amount of detail that took to get this. It looks like the world building here was getting started for something huge, and I think this is what leads into that old Republic era. And since I've not played the game, I don't know if there are any ties or characters from here. But, I mean, this takes place, like it says, 4 to 5 millennia before Episode 1. And I love that because they're not bogged down by the history that makes up the Skywalker saga. You don't have the Darth Vader, the Emperor Palpatine, Leia Ortega. You don't have any of that. You have these characters that you don't need to know anything about before reading this. As a matter of fact, you don't even need to read Volume 1 because this kicks off with a new era, new characters. Oh man, this first story was so damn good, and this covers are beautiful. I love that's pretty dramatic when you split up two siblings. One's with the opposite side that you're on. You're I guess what some would consider the good guys, the Republic, and the Empire's up there. Of course, this is before the age of the Rebels and all that. So a huge galactic war comes down here to Coruscant. So, I mean, there are some names there you're going to remember, but oh, damn. That was great. Now, let's look at the other two stories in here. So, we fast forward about 1,000 years. This is the cover, by the way, to the Epic Collection. And this is the story of Ulic Qel-Droma and the Beast Wars of Onderon. This one is written by Tom Veidt and is drawn by Chris Gossett. And it's got that similar style, of course, that he used in these stories here. This was more about the Jedi, and again, you'll see technology looking a little more ancient, but also a little more modern than what you saw in the earlier stories here. I love the use of the Jedi weapons. They're like daggers. They don't necessarily have to be lightsabers. It's like they were still trying to get even 1,000 years later, they're still trying to figure out exactly how to wield these Jedi weapons. And then we get one of my favorite stories here, probably my second favorite story, and that is the story of, and that is the saga of Nomi Sunrider. Now this one here has ties to the Dark Empire, but very, very little ties. I thought that was a cool way to bring it around. Because I'll be honest, I remember reading or hearing that name in Dark Empire, so I had to look it up and the connections were there. And you can see it all for yourself, or maybe you already know about this. But this is about a young lady who loses her husband, who was a Jedi, and takes up his Jedi lightsaber. And she becomes one of the greatest Jedis ever. But again, this is what the artwork looks like. I like that story a lot. I thought it was awesome. And then this is the Freedom Nod uprising here, where these stories are about to come together. As far as the extras in the back, this talks about the beginning of Tales of the Jedi, when they got permission from LucasArts to go ahead and start writing stories thousands of years before episodes 1 and 2. This is the cover process. The book has 480 pages and retails for $44.99. This is the character designs right here of the Golden Age of the Sith. Here are your two main characters, Gav and Jory. And then all the other characters that play an important part. And let me know in the comments if you read this, what you think of this story. Because Damn, I hope they do an omnibus of this because it was so good. And I don't know if there's going to be a volume 3. Also, let me know that too, because this is when I lost track of Star Wars, in the comics, because I wasn't reading a lot of the Dark Horse stuff. But now that they're reprinting them in this format, hell yeah. For the first time I've read this was freaking awesome. But that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these trades. Let me know in the comments down below what you are picking up if you're hoping one day we'll get a Star Wars Tales of the Jedi omnibus. That was so good. If you're hoping for a volume 2 of the Thor by Jason Aaron omnibus. And of course a volume 2 of Miss Marvel. And then Valkyrie. I know a lot of you all thought it was going to be an oversized hardcover because the solicit... Well, no, actually it was in the catalog. It never was solicited. But maybe one day, and include the King in Black stuff. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. Check out our Patreon and Spread Shop. Amazing ways to support the channel if you can do so. And more importantly, all of you stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.